The chandeliers glistened like frozen stars above the Manhattan elite as crystal glasses clinked and laughter rang out. At the edge of this world of wealth moved Anna Carter, a young waitress in plain black uniform and scuffed shoes. To the wealthy diners, she was invisible, no more than a shadow weaving between silk gowns and tailored suits. That illusion shattered when a cruel voice cut across the hall, mocking her as if her worth were measured in spilled wine. Guests smirked, their arrogance echoing louder than the music. Anna's steps stayed steady, her face calm, but the insult lodged deep, as sharp as broken glass. No one defended her, not even her manager. For the rich, humiliating her was entertainment. They leaned back in velvet chairs, secure in their superiority, while the one they dismissed quietly carried the weight of a storm waiting to break. The table of high society gleamed with gold cutlery, red wine swirling in expensive glasses, and voices heavy with superiority. Each remark from the VIPs landed like a knife, dissecting her appearance, her shoes, even her very presence in the room. To them, Anna was not a worker, she was an object meant to serve without identity. Their eyes traveled over her uniform with disgust, their laughter feeding on her silence. She did not flinch, yet inside, she carried the sting of contempt that no paycheck could cover. The room joined in with quiet glances, smirks shared between strangers who found common ground in demeaning her. Above it all, the chandeliers shimmered, a cruel contrast to her reality. This was not service. This was mockery dressed in designer clothing, and Anna was the chosen target. The more she endured, the more vicious they became, mistaking her silence for weakness. To the diners, Anna was nobody. What they never saw were the scars she carried beneath her sleeves, earned in silence and discipline on distant battlefields. Her past in the Navy was locked away in a folded photograph, medals left in storage, her uniform packed in dust. She had chosen to step away from power and privilege, leaving behind a world where her family's name opened doors. In this restaurant, she was stripped of that history, reduced to a figure in black delivering plates and glasses. As the room feasted on arrogance, she swallowed her pain with practiced restraint, her mind replaying training that had once taught her to remain calm even under fire. To the elite, she was invisible. But inside, she bore the strength of someone who had already faced storms greater than their words. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was a deliberate weapon they didn't understand. At the farthest corner of the glittering dining room sat James Colton, a man whose fortune stretched across continents. Unlike the others, he said nothing. His eyes observed. While the VIP table erupted in laughter at Anna's expense, Colton's gaze lingered on the steadiness of her hand, the way her shoulders refused to slump under humiliation. His presence was heavy, though he barely moved. The patrons barely noticed him. His reputation was one of restraint and cold authority. Yet in that silence, he studied her the way a strategist studies a battlefield. Quietly, calculatingly. He did not rise to defend her. He did not speak. But there was something in the way he watched, an awareness that this young woman carried a power no one else in the room could see. While others saw weakness, he saw control. And that unspoken recognition planted the seed of a storm soon to come.
When her tray passed near the kitchen doors, a hand pulled her aside. The restaurant manager, sweating from nerves, hissed warnings about staying clear of the wealthy guests. His words stung more than the insults, for instead of protecting his staff, he aligned with the ones who mocked her. His loyalty wasn't to his team, it was to money. He feared displeasing patrons far more than he cared about dignity. Anna nodded silently, her expression unreadable, and returned to the floor. Betrayal came not in shouts, but in whispers like these. The world of wealth didn't need to raise its voice. It had others do the silencing for them. And so the cruelty was layered, mockery from the rich, abandonment from management, and judgment from onlookers. Yet she carried on. Every step she took past velvet chairs and glittering plates was another silent refusal to break in front of them. The restaurant sparkled with false harmony, wine flowing, cutlery clinking, laughter rising. But beneath the glitter, Anna felt the heaviness of something unseen. Her instincts, honed in far harsher environments, whispered that the calm was brittle. Each sound echoed sharper, each shadow stretched longer. She steadied her breathing, as if preparing for something only she could sense. Around her, the wealthy dined, blissfully unaware, cocooned in arrogance. Their eyes rolled toward her each time she passed, sneers curled on their lips. But she was already elsewhere in her mind, rehearsing control. That discipline had once been survival. Tonight, it would be her anchor. To them, the restaurant was untouchable, a fortress of exclusivity. To Anna, it was a cage filled with wolves who mistook cruelty for strength. The storm was coming, though none of them knew it. And when it arrived, their illusions of superiority would fracture beyond repair.
The cruelty at the center table grew sharper, louder, as though feeding on its own echo. A spilled drop of wine became a stage for ridicule. A slightly wrinkled napkin sparked exaggerated disgust. Every movement Anna made was scrutinized, every step judged with venom disguised as sophistication. Laughter followed her, not applause. They wanted her small, humiliated, diminished under their gaze. Across the room, whispers joined in, strangers entertained by the theater of cruelty. They didn't question, didn't protest. They nodded, smirked, and drank deeper, complicit in the performance of her degradation. Each insult layered upon the last, until the air itself carried the stench of mockery. Anna walked on steady legs, refusing to stumble, but the weight pressed heavy. The room demanded she break. What they didn't understand was that she had already been broken once and rebuilt stronger. Their cruelty wasn't destroying her, it was preparing her. Though the restaurant bustled with wealth and chatter, Anna's path through it was solitary. She served drinks to tables that ignored her presence, cleaned up crumbs from silk tablecloths without acknowledgement, and endured whispers not meant to be silent. Yet the more they mocked, the calmer she appeared. She was utterly alone, surrounded by people, yet unseen except as a target. That isolation wasn't new. It mirrored years of walking among people who valued status over soul. But it carved deep. Alone in the crowd, she carried the quiet burden of someone judged not by who she was, but by what she lacked. Still, her silence remained her shield. She had learned long ago that voices raised in protest were crushed, but silence could endure. While they believed they owned the room, she carried a truth they couldn't strip from her. She had faced worse enemies than ridicule. In a fleeting moment by the bar, she slipped a hand into her apron and brushed against the old, creased photograph she kept hidden. It showed her in fatigues, standing among soldiers in a sun-scorched courtyard, medals shining faintly on her chest. No one here would have believed it. The same woman mocked for wrinkled shoes had once worn honor with pride. She tucked the photograph back quickly before anyone noticed. The bartender caught her pause but didn't ask. Most never did. The world of wealth did not care for stories of sacrifice. They cared only for performance. The photo was her reminder, her anchor, the proof that their sneers did not define her. She had chosen this life of simplicity, but in that choice, she had also chosen invisibility. What they could never know was that invisibility carried strength. It meant she saw everything while being overlooked. As the night deepened, so did the mockery. A careless hand at the VIP table sent a crystal glass tumbling, shattering at her feet. Instead of apology, laughter rose sharp and deliberate, reveling in her humiliation. She bent to collect the shards, each piece cutting the silence around her like an accusation. Guests leaned back smugly, their judgment thick in the air. Her face stayed steady, but her chest tightened.
They wanted her to bend lower, to embody the invisibility they had already decided she deserved. But just as the laughter swelled, the doors to the restaurant slammed open. Boots hit the marble. Black masks entered. The storm she had sensed finally broke. Panic spread instantly, their laughter silenced, their arrogance shattered. In that moment, Anna's stillness became her strength, while the world around her collapsed into fear. The game had changed, and the room had no idea what was coming.
The chandeliers shook as three masked men stormed inside, boots slamming against polished marble. The room collapsed into chaos. Silk gowns crumpled to the floor, diamond necklaces clutched desperately, crystal glasses shattering under hurried feet. Screams ricocheted off gold-framed mirrors. The wealthy who had mocked Anna now crawled beneath tables, trembling and pleading. Their arrogance evaporated in an instant. Anna stood in the open, tray still in hand, her breathing slow, her body steady. While others wept and begged, her eyes scanned with precision. 3 guns, 3 targets, 3 exits. The leader's weapon leveled at her chest. To the room, she appeared reckless. To herself, she was calculating, her training rising to the surface like a long-suppressed instinct. Amid the shrieks and shattered glass, she alone carried stillness. For the first time that night, she was not invisible. Every eye turned to the calmest person in the storm. Instead of admiration, her composure drew venom. Hidden beneath linen-draped tables, whispers hissed like knives. Guests muttered that she was reckless, stupid, arrogant for standing tall. Some snarled that she was endangering them all, their fear twisting into hatred aimed at the very woman refusing to crumble. The irony was cruel. Those who mocked her weakness now condemned her strength. The leader pressed the barrel closer to her forehead, yet she did not kneel. Her silence enraged the room more than it enraged the robber. In their eyes, she was supposed to be small, forgettable, broken. But her refusal to cower exposed their own cowardice. Fear made them turn on her, eager to find someone to blame, and she became the target once again. Surrounded by wealth, she remained the poorest in status, but the richest in resolve. What they could not see was that the balance of power was shifting.
In a single motion, she stepped off the line of fire, seizing the leader's wrist. The gun clattered to marble, her elbows snapping into his jaw. He collapsed without a sound, his mask torn sideways. Gasps rose louder than gunfire. The tray in her other hand didn't tremble. She set it down gently on a table, as though finishing her shift. For 15 seconds, the room forgot its fear and fell into silence, stunned that the woman they ridiculed had struck with such precision. But silence did not bring gratitude. Eyes narrowed, whispers swelled. She was no longer weak, but dangerous. Her strength unsettled them as much as her silence once had. The wealthy preferred heroes who looked like them, not a waitress in scuffed shoes. Yet while they recoiled, Anna stood firm, calm, unflinching. She knew this was only the beginning. 2 more shadows circled. The fight was far from over. The second robber lunged, swinging wildly with desperation. His gun slipped in his panicked grip, but his rage was real. Chairs toppled, glass shattered. Patrons screamed louder, their terror misdirected at Anna rather than the attacker. She moved like water, sidestepping his blow, driving her knee into his stomach and sending him crashing through a table. Wood splintered across the floor, shards scattering into the hem of a socialite's gown. Instead of gratitude, the woman sneered from her crouch, muttering that Anna was reckless, selfish, endangering them all. The crowd nodded, eager to shift blame. Fear clouded judgment, and judgment always fell hardest on the one already despised. The robber groaned on the ground, disarmed and broken, yet still the whispers cursed Anna louder than they cursed the men who threatened them. In their eyes, she had overstepped her role. They would rather see her kneel than rise. The third robber approached differently. He did not rush. He drew a knife, its blade catching the chandelier's glow like a shard of ice. Moving deliberately, he circled her, waiting for weakness. Around them, the wealthy muttered bitterly, dismissing her as reckless, labeling her a show-off, a waitress playing soldier. They didn't realize the truth, that she had been one. Her stance shifted, her body lowering, her hand steady. The man lunged. With practiced precision, she twisted his wrist, flipped the blade into her own hand, and slammed him flat against the marble. He lay groaning, his knife at her feet. The room froze again. In less than half a minute, 3 armed men had fallen. Yet no applause rose, no gratitude filled the air. Instead, contempt sharpened. Their pride couldn't bear that the one they ridiculed had become their savior. Anna's greatest threat was not on the floor, it was all around her. The 3 men writhed on marble, defeated and weaponless. The chandeliers still trembled from the echoes of chaos. Yet instead of cheers, the air thickened with suspicion. An older man in a crumpled tuxedo stood shakily, pointing a trembling hand toward Anna. His voice rang bitter across the hall. She was dangerous, perhaps even one of them. The accusation spread like wildfire. Others nodded, their fear hunting for an easy scapegoat. She had not only ruined their illusion of safety, she had humiliated them by proving they were powerless. Pride twisted into venom, sharper than the knives she had disarmed. Anna bent slowly, set the captured blade on the table, her movements careful, deliberate, unthreatening. But her calm only deepened their unease. They had mocked her weakness, condemned her strength, and now sought to erase her victory. Surrounded by wealth, she stood utterly alone, the hero nobody wanted to acknowledge. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights spilling across the restaurant walls. Officers stormed in, cuffing the groaning robbers, dragging them out past broken tables. Relief should have followed, but instead, whispers filled the air again, laced with disdain. To the shaking elite, Anna was not a savior, but a problem. Their eyes accused her of provoking violence, of showing strength they considered unnatural for someone in her place. The manager's face burned red as he confronted her, his voice sharp, blaming her for escalating the situation. She said nothing, only stacked glasses onto a tray, her movements calm amid chaos. To the wealthy patrons, this quiet control looked like arrogance. Their fear demanded someone to blame, and it was easier to condemn the woman who had saved them than admit they themselves had cowered. Even with danger removed, Anna remained the target of their judgment. A grizzled officer with a scar across his cheek froze when he saw her face. His voice broke the poisonous whispers. He recognized her. She wasn't just a waitress. She was Sergeant Anna Carter, once Navy Special Forces, a decorated veteran who had saved lives in combat far from Manhattan. Murmurs rippled, disbelief spreading like cracks in glass. The very people who mocked her minutes ago now struggled to reconcile the truth. Their eyes darted, some embarrassed, some angry, some desperate to rewrite their own memory of insults. Anna did not gloat. She only nodded quietly, as though the revelation was a burden rather than a shield. For years she had chosen invisibility, seeking simplicity. Now her truth spilled into the open, stripping away their illusions. But even this revelation didn't silence contempt. Some leaned back with folded arms, sneering that a soldier or not, she was still just help.
Instead of vindication, her manager doubled down. Flushed and trembling, he accused her of endangering the restaurant, claiming her hidden past made her untrustworthy. He snapped that she was fired on the spot. The wealthy patrons nodded approvingly, eager to see her punished for daring to rise above their contempt. Their fear and pride demanded her downfall. Anna set her tray down carefully, her hand steady, her gaze level. She did not protest, did not plead. Her silence was louder than any words. The crowd smirked, convinced they had restored order. In truth, they had only revealed their own fragility. By condemning her, they exposed how desperately they clung to illusions of superiority. Her removal was meant to erase the humiliation she had caused them.
but in the quiet strength of her walk toward the door, their laughter rang hollow. They feared her calm more than her strength. As Anna reached the edge of the hall, a sudden stillness swept through the room. James Colton, silent all evening, finally stood. His voice, low but commanding, filled every corner of the gilded hall. He declared that he saw not a waitress, not an inconvenience, but the only person in the room who had kept her nerve when lives were at stake. His words cut through the contempt like a blade, silencing whispers, freezing smirks. Extending his hand, he announced her appointment as head of security for his global corporation. Gasps erupted, wine glasses slipped, pride cracked. The very people who had mocked her were forced to face the truth. The woman they belittled now held authority beyond their reach. Anna accepted with quiet steadiness, her calm finally seen for what it was, strength. The room that once sneered now stared in disbelief, their arrogance shattered in a single moment.
By morning, the footage spread like wildfire. Security cameras leaked, replaying the moment a waitress dismantled 3 armed men while Wall Street titans cowered beneath tables. Headlines blazed across screens. Billionaire appoints waitress head of security after daring takedown. In apartments and offices across the city, people whispered about the woman whose composure had shamed the powerful. For the elites, the humiliation cut deep. For everyday workers, it was vindication, a glimpse of truth in a city built on appearances. Anna did not post or boast. She walked quietly through the morning streets, coffee in hand, the chatter of strangers behind her. Some called her hero, others muttered she was reckless. But for the first time, people saw her. Her invisibility had broken, and whether the city liked it or not, she could no longer be dismissed as just the help. James Colton's declaration spread faster than the robbery itself. His statement, naming Anna as his new head of security, unsettled boardrooms and charity galas alike. To some, it was proof of his shrewdness, recognizing talent where others saw none. To others, it was scandal, an insult to pedigree and polished resumes. The elites whispered in penthouses, angry that one of their own had elevated someone they worked so hard to step over. But ordinary people cheered. A waitress elevated to guard one of the city's most powerful men was a story they clung to in quiet pride. In Anna's small apartment, the headlines stacked on her doorstep. She didn't bask in them. She set the papers aside, folded her uniform, and slipped the old photograph of her military team back into a drawer. Her victories had never been for display, but now her steadiness had a stage she never asked for.
The fallout struck Richard Vance first. A video clip, paired with his Bordeaux sneer, went viral under the caption, "Mocked the woman who saved his life." His hedge fund clients pulled money overnight, unwilling to be tied to arrogance that had been exposed. Interviews on business channels turned hostile, reporters demanding answers he couldn't spin. The man who once sneered at Anna as nobody now found his empire crumbling under the weight of his own disdain. Candace's laughter, once sharp enough to cut, echoed hollow in empty gala halls. Invitations stopped arriving. The same social circles that had embraced her now deleted her name from lists, afraid of the backlash. Their wealth remained, but their prestige dissolved. And as cameras caught them avoiding questions, the world remembered every smirk and insult hurled at the woman they thought invisible. For Derek Lawson, humiliation came through his own creation. Online sleuths unearthed the security footage of his trembling plea during the robbery, side by side with his earlier arrogance. A viral tweet mocked him as "crypto bro begging for life while a waitress saved it." His startup's investors recoiled, unwilling to trust a man whose bravado had been unmasked as cowardice. His girlfriend, Lauren, saw her glossy posts dissected across social media. The video of her sneering about Anna's shoes became a meme, captioned, luxury without class. Invitations to influencer parties dried up. Sponsorships evaporated. Their downfall was not loud but steady. Each lost deal, another nail sealing their decline. The same voices that once echoed in expensive restaurants now whispered with shame. And somewhere above the city, Anna read none of it. She was busy studying layouts of Colton's corporate towers, preparing for a role she had never needed validation to claim.
Greg, the manager who had fired her, faced his own reckoning. His name surfaced in leaked staff messages, mocking Anna for being too serious, too quiet, too plain. Former employees piled on, telling stories of his favoritism and arrogance. The restaurant that once glowed with chandeliers now sat half empty, its reputation gutted by association. Patrons avoided it, unwilling to be connected to a place that had ridiculed the very woman who saved its life. Greg gave one defensive interview, insisting he only wanted to protect guests. The footage of him hiding behind a bar while Anna stood firm played alongside his words, dismantling them in seconds. He disappeared after that, his silence louder than his excuses. For Anna, it was no triumph. She didn't smile at his ruin. She simply knew the truth had surfaced, and that was enough. Anna's first day in Colton's skyscraper offices was nothing like her shifts at the restaurant. Executives in tailored suits fell silent as she entered, their eyes darting nervously. Some had been present during the robbery, and their memories betrayed them. They had sneered, now they nodded politely. A desk awaited her, sleek and bare, save for a framed card given by a young staffer who had quietly thanked her, "You saved us." She placed beside it the worn photograph from her military years. The contrast struck her, past and present, duty and rejection, invisibility and recognition. For once, her stillness carried weight in a room full of noise. The boardroom may not have embraced her fully, but they deferred. Her strength no longer needed to be hidden in silence. Here, at least, her calm was no longer treated as weakness.
Not everyone forgot quickly. Outside the skyscraper, workers who had seen the headlines lingered, waiting for a glimpse. One afternoon, as Anna left for home, a delivery driver stopped her, his voice hesitant but firm. He told her that his daughter had watched the footage on her phone, and it gave her courage to stand tall when kids mocked her at school. Anna listened quietly, nodded, and continued walking. She never sought applause, yet gratitude followed her like shadows cast by street lamps. For every sneer she endured that night, a new voice rose to balance it. Voices that recognized strength in places the world ignored. It wasn't revenge that filled her chest, it was something steadier, the quiet knowledge that dignity, once denied, had finally been seen. Anna never embraced the headlines that hailed her as a hero. She declined interviews, ignored viral trends, and refused offers to sell her story. Instead, she walked the floors of Colton's corporation with the same measured stride she once carried through the restaurant. Colleagues lowered their voices when she spoke, sensing authority that had nothing to do with titles. She made no speeches, carried no banners. Her silence was her power, her calm more commanding than shouts could ever be. For years, they had dismissed her as nobody. Now entire rooms shifted when she entered. It was not wealth that elevated her, not a billionaire's appointment. It was her own refusal to break, a strength that no robbery, no sneer, no firing could erase.
Months later, the city's elite gathered again at charity halls and corporate conferences, but whispers followed the names Richard, Candace, Derek, and Lauren. Their legacies had been rewritten, not by scandalous deals, but by a single night when they mocked the wrong woman. Their power had slipped quietly, their seats at the table replaced by others. They remained wealthy, but prestige had been carved away. Their names carried a sting, a reminder of arrogance unmasked. Meanwhile, Anna's remained steady, respected, even among those who once doubted. In private corners,
The cruel justified their downfall as misfortune. But those who remembered knew the truth. Pride had undone them, and the waitress they dismissed had proven stronger than all their wealth. One evening, long after the headlines had faded, Anna stood by the office window, the city glowing below. On her desk rested two objects: the creased military photograph and the handwritten card of gratitude. They were small tokens, yet together they told the story of a woman who refused to let contempt define her. She had endured insults, survived betrayal, and carried calm through storms designed to break her. In the end, she had not risen to prove herself to those who mocked her. She had risen simply by staying true to who she was. The city had finally been forced to see what she had always known: